waiting for it to get started today. It's going to be a short day. Court is not starting until 12, but y'all know the queen. I'm here early. So with that all being said, let's talk about it, because do you guys think that the feds have proven their case? And do you think that the diddler is going to walk, or is he going to prison? Let's talk about it. Because prosecutors, according to some legal experts, they seem to think that the prosecutors made a strong case against Diddy, but they also say the verdict is unpredictable. Okay, now legal analysts told Forbes that prosecutors made a very strong case to convict Sean Diddy Combs in his federal criminal trial on trafficking and racketeering charges as they rest their case on Tuesday. But there's plenty of room for a jury to decide either way. Please pay attention. Now, Diddy's on trial, of course, for trafficking, racketeering charges, and the prosecutors are accusing him of running a criminal enterprise that committed various crimes, including coercing several women, including his ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, into participating in elaborate sex performances. Now, if convicted, Diddy could serve the rest of his life in prison. Now, the trafficking and racketeering charges carry maximum sentences of life in prison, while the transportation to engage in prostitution charges carry maximum sentences of 10 years in prison. Prosecutors are expected to finish closing arguments on, well, they said on Tuesday, but that's all going to start tomorrow. Okay, and I'm very interested to see how this is all going to pan out. Now, Mark Zotterer, who's a veteran trial and appellate lawyer, said that he thinks that Diddy is more likely to be convicted than acquitted, but he believes the jury's decision will depend on whether or not prosecutors successfully convince jurors that Diddy ran a criminal enterprise, which would satisfy the racketeering charge. So now let's talk about that, because like I told you guys yesterday, this all boils down to, as it pertains to the criminal enterprise, it all boils down to mens rea. Okay, mens rea means a guilty mind. So that gives intent. Okay, were there intentions from the beginning of the enterprise or organization for them to get together? Now here's the thing. Let's not forget that RICO was initially created for organized crime syndicates. Okay, it was for the mafia. Now we all know that in organized crime, there's like a hierarchy. Okay, you have the person at the top, and then you have the people that are below them, and each person has a designated task that they carry out. Okay, you have the hitmen, you have those who are like the enforcers, who go around and intimidate and threaten people, the ones that extort people, that go and collect money from businesses or whomever, right, that they're getting money from. So everybody plays an intricate role in a criminal enterprise, organization, mafia, whatever you want to call it. Now, was Diddy doing the same thing as that? Here's the problem that I think they're going to run into with the defense, okay, against the defense countering them. The bottom line is Diddy and the people that work for him, his staff, being it Christina Coram, the chief of staff, and the assistants and other people, these people did not all get together and say they were going to be crime syndicates, did they? Or they're going to form a crime syndicate and be crime bosses, did they? Did they do that? Likely not. And also, when these people were in fact committing crimes for Diddy, the assistants, for example, did they in fact know that they were doing something that could liken their activity to a RICO, to a mob syndicate? Or were they just following orders and doing what their boss told them to do because they didn't want to get fired? Did they have an agreement that, hey, we're going to all, do A, B, and C. This is my role, this is your role, and we're all going to carry out these nefarious acts? Okay, so that's what the defendant is going to be, the defense is going to be calling out when they have their closing arguments, I'm pretty sure. Okay, now, Zotterer said prosecutors did an excellent job presenting the government's case, but said that jurors will have to believe that Diddy coerced women into sex instead of the defense's opposing argument that they were willing participants. Now let's talk about that, because Jane Doe, we saw text messages days ago, and we've seen them previously, but we saw more text messages about Jane Doe, where she was in fact talking about how she was ready, to get into it. She wanted to do this and do that. She was all hot and bothered, and she was horny and all these things. And she's calling up workers like Cabral, the one that was one of her favorites. She's asking, can he fly out? She's calling Paul to see if he can fly out. And she's like, send me a D pic and all that kind of stuff. And some of these things she was doing behind the diddler's back. So was she a willing participant? And let's not forget that her main complaint was that he was telling her that he wasn't going to pay the mortgage on the house. Okay, he was threatening that he wasn't going to do that anymore. And you know, the thing is, the defense could absolutely make that look as though, and they already have done that in my opinion, and it just depends on how the jurors view it, but they basically can make it look as though she was only out for money and that she was just upset when she realized that the diddler wasn't going to make her the number one and he wasn't going to stop messing around with the other women. Okay? Queen, some charges are dropped last night. Well, that's because, as I told you all, they overcharged him. Remember I told you all that they overcharged him? Now, they're going to get into all of that in court this afternoon when we get in there at 12 o'clock, because the jury's not even coming in today. The jury has been given the day off. It's just going to be the prosecution and the defense and the judge and us in there listening, because they're going to place their arguments, okay? Says the major charge was dropped. Wait till you go inside. Well, like I said, is that a surprise to anybody? Because like I said, I told you guys they overcharged him. Now, with that all being said, former federal prosecutor Mark Chutko said the prosecution made a very compelling case. They say Diddy allegedly abused the women who testified, in part by emphasizing their surveillance footage. Remember how they said he was holding that over their heads? Okay, they emphasized that by using he emphasized it by using their surveillance footage of him attacking Ventura, or shall I say, the prosecution emphasized that. They played that video over and over and over. Okay, I don't even know how many times that we actually saw it, but it was a lot. Chutko, though, said that the jury may be convinced the video proves Combs committed domestic violence, but does not prove either the trafficking or racketeering charges. Now, they say it's possible that Diddy's trial could end in a mistrial, according to Chutko, and this is what he told Forbes, saying that Diddy's lawyers have requested a mistrial on multiple occasions, which they did that 3 times, and they knew they weren't going to get it, in my opinion. They just wanted to use that for their case, for the appeal, in case they need to. Now, they said, says in all of which were denied, but if the trial ends in a hung jury, meaning that not all jurors agree on a verdict, a mistrial could be declared. In the event of a mistrial, the case would head to retrial. Just like in the case of Weinstein, his was overturned and he had to have another trial. So they said, which could be advantageous for Combs because the defense attorneys could look for potential inconsistencies in the witness testimony between the first and second trial. And that's what often happens when you have a mistrial and then they have to retry the person. Very often, the witnesses who testified in the first trial may not say exactly the same things or tell the same stories the way they told them previously in the first trial, okay? Now, prosecutors indicated they would finish questioning their final witness, which they already have, and that was Joseph Cerciello. They finished with him on Tuesday. So they had like altogether 34 witnesses. Diddy will not take the stand as a witness. He stood up in court and said that yesterday. And as I told you all, it was very interesting because Diddy seemed like he was anxious to talk. He stood up and basically, you know, thanked the judge for doing a good job and all of that. Okay, I don't think that the judge was really here for it, mind you. Okay, so another thing is one of the strategies that they were supposed to use, according to reports, was that Agnifilo, I believe it was going to basically say something, allegedly was going to say something about how Homeland Security investigators need to be more concerned about what's going on in Iran than they are with what Diddy's got going on in his bedroom, and more concerned about that than the baby oil and Astroglide. So yesterday, before we left court, Maureen Comey stood up and told the judge that she would hope that on today that Mr. Agnifilo, or during closing arguments, that Mr. Agnifilo or nobody from his team would say anything about current events, trending topics, or things going on, you know, in other countries or whatever, that she was basically saying she would hope that he would not try to insert anything pertaining to that into the trial. And she was definitely talking about the comments that he likely said allegedly said about Iran. And so she said if he says anything about those topics, that she's going to definitely object, and she's putting that on the record for right now. So then the judge asked him, said, Mr. Agnifilo, do we have anything to worry about? And he basically said no. Okay? Likes up, everyone, please. Like and share. Please like and share. Thank you in advance. So what do you all think? Do you all feel like they have enough for him to be found guilty? Hold on, beloveds. I'm pulling up some more of my notes. Okay, and let's not forget them bringing up Rule 29 for the acquittal, stating that the prosecution did not prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. Okay? And you know what's interesting, the defense basically ended their case yesterday within like 20 to 30 minutes. It was real quick. They didn't spend a lot of time up there, and I was just like really shocked that they chose not to even bring the forensic psychiatrist. Because in my opinion, the forensic psychiatrist, I was expecting them, him or her, to get up there and say something about Diddy having diminished capacity, and that's the reason for his violence and nefariousness, because he was taking all of those rugs with a D. So, the truth be told, I'm worried about the world, the hell with Diddy. Well, we should be worried about the world, beloved. Absolutely, with the things that are going on, right? Specifically, we should be worried about retaliation from Iran. But I also heard last night that everything's not what Trump said as far as him destroying their nuclear sites. I heard that was all a load of BS. Now, I didn't get to look into it and do real research because I was preoccupied, but I did see that. Now, Diddy's freedom rises and falls on Cassie Ventura's testimony. Okay, lawyers prep for closing arguments. So when the legal teams rested their case on Tuesday without calling one witness to the stand, and more than 7 weeks after a jury was seated in the rapper's federal trial for trafficking crimes, the government presented 34 witnesses to the jury in an attempt to prove their case. Judge Wood said, never did to me. Reasonable adult can see theater. All right. Well, thank you for your insight into the topic, beloved, and your contribution to the channel. Peace, love, and blessings. Okay? You know, a lot of people are saying that. Some people said this whole thing's a joke. I'm not saying it's a joke, but a lot of people have been saying that lately. So it just goes to show how public opinion, you know, has been swayed, because it seems to me like more people felt like Diddy had enough for him to get a life sentence, and now it seems like it's kind of shifted. There are still people that believe that, but it seems like there are less people believing that at this point. Okay? So with closing arguments scheduled to begin Thursday, following a charge conference where both sides will finalize jury instructions, that's what's going to happen today at 12. Former federal prosecutor Mark Chutko believes Cassie Ventura's testimony may be the most compelling evidence for the jury to hand down a conviction. Now, Chutko told Fox News Digital that the government argued their case by planning and providing enough evidence to support the charges against the Bad Boy Records founder. They say when you look at the indictment, it's very long. It's a speaking indictment, and they have ticked off all of the various facts that they have presented to the jury in that indictment. They brought in evidence of violence. They brought in evidence of guns, of rugs with a D, of sex acts, and they said they really came through with what they said they were going to do in this case. Now, Diddy was charged with racketeering conspiracy, which is a RICO, as trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, and transportation to engage in prostitution in a federal indictment that was unsealed September the 17th. They say it was savvy to bring this as a racketeering case in some ways, because it allowed them to bring in a lot more evidence of his bad acts that they wouldn't have otherwise been able to do if this were very narrowly a tailored case. Now, and so in that respect, I mean, the case really rises and falls with the testimony of Cassie Ventura. Chucko also said, if the jury believes it, if they believe that she really couldn't get away from him and she had to do the things that he requested, then the prosecution has gone a long way toward a conviction in the case. What do you all think about this? Because he thinks that this is all about Cassie's testimony, you know, and that if they feel like he was really coercing Cassie and making her do things, then the case is a slam dunk. That's basically what he's saying. Now, jurors heard allegations of freak-off parties involving male escorts and Diddy's ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura. The Me and You singer testified that rugs, including ecstasy, ketamine, and Coca-Cola, were in regular circulation during the freak-offs for her to disassociate during the sessions. But now, remember on yesterday, I told you all that the defense, in fact, provided receipts of text messages where Diddy asked Cassie, did she think that she could do it without being high, doing any rugs with a D? And she said, yes. She said, I absolutely can. Okay, she sounded confident. Now, whether she actually could or not, I don't know. But that's what it said in those messages. She said that Coca-Cola made her heart race. Mushrooms made her see things. And GHB, also known as the date grape rug, made her feel as if she were drunk. She also claimed that it was commonplace for Diddy to become physical with her in their relationship. She defined physical as punishment, beatings, and kicking. Now, Cassie testified that Diddy raped her, okay, on the living room floor in 2018 and then left. At the time, she had been dating Alex Fine, who is now her husband. Cassie admitted to seeing Combs again after the alleged rape, telling the jury that they had been together for 10 years and they had a connection. How do you have a connection with someone who rapes you on your living room floor and then leaves? And who extorted your mother for $20,000 and held over your head pictures and video footage of you engaging in the freak-offs that you say that he told you and made you and coerced you into doing? How do you have a bond with that person? Now, some will say that, in fact, they believe that she suffered from Stockholm Syndrome. Well, maybe she did. But what I think that the prosecution should have done is brought in an expert on Stockholm Syndrome to, in fact, prove that Cassie, in fact, had that. Because some people aren't convinced that she had it. Some people think that she stayed there for the money. There were also text messages that we saw on yesterday where Cassie was saying that she needs to make sure her bank account is right and that she has the right team. Now, when she said that, the defense, of course, is alluding to the fact that she wanted money. Now, this was a text from 2017. Don't get mad at me because I'm just telling you all what the evidence said. I'm not saying whether I agree or disagree with it because I wasn't there. But at the end of the day, that was their counter for some of it. So now goes on to say that Diddy and Cassie dated on and off from 2007 until 2018. Another ex who testified under the pseudonym of Jane told prosecutors there were times that she felt coerced into hotel nights with Diddy and that he also still pays for both her legal fees and her rents. I have so many questions about that. Why is he still paying for these things? Now, former federal prosecutor Anthony M. Capozzolo admitted that it would be difficult to predict what the jury may decide in this case. They say the trial seems like it will come down to one central question. Were the women coerced, or did they voluntarily participate in the sexual escapades known as freak-offs? Okay? Now, it would seem that if the jury believes that Cassie Ventura and the other women were coerced, then Diddy may likely face a conviction on more than one of the charges. Given that Diddy presented no real substantive defense in the case, his fate may simply depend on how well his attorneys were able to attack the credibility of the women who testified and how well the defense is able to persuade the jury that their claims of coercion are unreliable. He also added, and this is Capozzolo, by the way, he says that defense attorneys will certainly argue that the fact that two of the women who were described as victims did not testify is a lack of evidence the jury can consider in determining if the government proved its case beyond a reasonable doubt. For the racketeering charges, Capozolo questioned if there was an actual agreement among the co-conspirators to prove the necessary elements of racketeering conspiracy charges. That goes back to what I just told you. He said the same thing that I said. Okay? The bottom line is, was there an agreement? Did these people all get together, sit down at a table like the Godfather, okay, and say, you know, we're going to run this organized crime syndicate, okay? We're going to have our own mafia. I'm going to be the boss, Diddy, and you're going to do this, Christina Coram, and Brendan Paul, you're going to do this, David James, you're going to do this, Capricorn Clark, this is what you're going to do, and George Kaplan, this is what you're going to do. And then Jane Doe and Cassie, well, you already know your roles. Did they do that? Where's the mens rea? Did they have a guilty mind? Did they all plan this out methodically? Did they have nefarious intentions? Or is this something that just happened as Diddy grew with fame and wealth and his head just got swollen so big he had to turn sideways to walk through the door? And that's when he started thinking, you know what? I'm Diddy. I run this city. I can do whatever the hell I want, and I can get other people to do whatever the hell I want them to do. And if they don't, they'll have consequences and repercussions, because that's what it sounds like happened to me. I don't think they got together and had this whole plot and a conspiracy that they're going to be involved in a RICO. That's what I don't think. And I specifically think that the people that were doing things for him, such as his assistants, whether it be Capricorn Clark, whether it be David James, George Kaplan, or Brendan Paul, okay, or John Perez, wasn't that his name? The guy Perez, the one that came sashaying in and laid it all on the line. I don't think that any of them ever intended to do anything illegal, okay? I think they were just doing what their boss asked them to do. And with that all being said, does that make it a criminal enterprise? Does that make it a criminal enterprise? Feds dropped Diddy's charges. Well, they didn't drop charges, honey. Diddy's gonna be picking up the soap. Hey, Leon, beloved. I find it all so interesting. So, with that all being said, let's continue. Now, they say in most racketeering cases, like mob cases, for example, organized crime, the government calls several co-conspirators, usually cooperators, okay, who get on the stand and admit that they were part of a racketeering conspiracy. Now, if they agree to participate in an ongoing enterprise, understanding that its purpose was to commit certain crimes, then that makes it a criminal enterprise. But here, none of the witnesses at the trial have testified to participating in a racketeering conspiracy. And some of the people whom the government identifies as key co-conspirators have never been charged, nor have they testified, such as Combs' former chief of staff, Christina Coram, aka KK. Like I said days ago, where the hell is this woman? Why hasn't she been charged? Okay, I have several questions. Why hasn't she been charged, and where is she, and where is D-Rock? Now, still, Capozolo clarified that the government provided compelling evidence to support the case, which included testimony, videos, photos, and text messages, and will likely take great care to marshal the evidence when closing arguments begin. Even if prosecutors fail to convict on the top racketeering charge, the S-trafficking charges carry significant penalties, including a mandatory minimum of 15 years. So even a compromised verdict, rather than a straight acquittal, may prove costly for Diddy. A federal RICO violation can result in a 20-year sentence per each charge. Okay, please pay attention. Now, and that's according to U.S. Code 2421, transportation charge. A transportation charge can carry a sentence of up to 10 years, while U.S. Code 2422 coercion and enticement charges can carry a 20-year sentence. Now, each of the violations may also include monetary fines. Well, we already know that if Diddy's found guilty, or shall I say when he's found guilty, they're going to come and snatch up all of his assets and all of his cash. that's left or whatever, civil asset forfeiture. Criminal defense and civil attorney Dante Pointer of Lawyers for the People LLC said that while the prosecutors may not be able to convince a jury of all of the charges, even one conviction will cost Diddy. Now keep in mind, the prosecution only needs to prove a single charge about one of the several alleged victims in this case for Diddy to be facing significant prison time. Now, with that all being said, we already know they're getting ready for an appeals process. We already know they're getting ready for the appeals. They have so much going on with the appeals because here's the thing. The prior bad acts, okay, the testimony of Breonna Bongalon, which they decided was, or which they declared was perjurious, okay, the fact that juror number 6 was dismissed, the evidence that they wanted to get out and not have it allowed in when they found all those motions in limine, and also rule number 29, where they asked for an acquittal because they claim the prosecution has not proven its point or its case beyond a reasonable doubt. All of these things and more, okay, that I haven't even kept track of, but these things and others will be used when they go for their appeal. I see all of these free Diddies, you know, a YouTube channel that's unbiased. Let's go listen to them. Okay? Right, exactly. I would implore you to, beloved. I would implore you to. Because right now you're listening to the Queen, whether you like it or not. Okay? I mean, you didn't have to announce you were leaving. You can just go and leave. Moderators, please block the person that put in that comments, because I wouldn't want them to be here listening since they think I'm biased. Okay? Mel said, Queen, please get them out of here. That's what I'm letting the moderators do. That crazy bitch Aries, you don't have to block, and how you doing? You don't have to block anyone for saying free Diddy. I don't care if anybody says free Diddy, because some people are for Diddy, some people are not. But at the end of the day, hold on. Okay, I had to mute that because there was music. But for the person who said, let's go to an unbiased channel, block them, that crazy bitch Aries. Okay, block them. No, don't worry about the spamming. That's different people saying free Diddy. It's not the same person. Don't worry about any of that. Just block the person that said I was biased and they need to go to an unbiased channel. Block them. Okay, thank you. You got them. Okay, good enough. Okay, and get 42, whatever their name is, that said this lady is certified crazy. Yeah, I guess I am, because you don't like what I'm saying. Why are you on here? If you're on here listening to somebody who you think is certified crazy, what does that say about you, sir, ma'am, or they, us, or we? Okay, I don't know your pronouns. But anyway, with that being said, let me continue. Okay, so they go on to say that if the defense successfully sows seeds of doubt in a single juror's mind, then the jury will be unable to reach a unanimous verdict, which is required to convict someone. However, he still faces a substantial challenge on the counts of transportation to engage in prostitution, as it relates to the male prostitutes, mind you. Okay, that's what that's all about. Now, since federal prosecutors have ample evidence, which appears to be mostly uncontroverted, they say that Diddy paid and arranged for the S workers to fly to different locations to engage in sexual activity for money. Here's the thing, did he do that? Because the women said they did it. The women both said that they set those things up and they paid the money. Now, we know the money came from Diddy. We know the idea came from Diddy. But they said that they called Cowboys for Angels and they looked for these S workers and they flew them out, made the travel arrangements with Jess, the travel agent, and that they paid the money. So, are they going to convince the jury? Is the jury, in fact, convinced that the diddler is the one who did this? I have several questions, okay, because I'm not sure that they've proven that, okay? I'm not sure that they've proven that. And mind you, these men were more than willing. They were not coerced or anything, okay? They did it for the money. These men, all of them did, okay? All of them did. You know what was funny to me is when one of the guys said that Diddy didn't pay him all his money, and he went back to Cowboys for Angels and told them that Diddy shorted him $600. And so then they text Diddy or whatever, or called him, and basically told Diddy, well, you didn't pay him all the money. He needs like 600 more. And Diddy's like, no, he didn't do what he's supposed to do, basically. Okay, he couldn't get it up. And so I'm not giving him the money. And the guy was like, listen, whether he was supposed to go jet skiing or whatever he was supposed to be doing, okay, you're supposed to pay for the service, okay? You're supposed to pay for the service, not the performance. So basically saying whether he did what you wanted him to do or not, you're supposed to pay for his time. He showed up, he was there, and you need to give him his money. And Diddy was like, get the F out of here, okay? That's what he was like, get the F out of here. Because we already know that it was further previously testified to that Diddy would not pay if there were things going on that he didn't appreciate. Like if you didn't get it off, if you didn't put out that stuff that he wanted on his body, that he wanted them to put on his chest and rub on his nipples. If he didn't get any of that, you weren't getting your cash. Also, if you didn't complete the task, okay, then you weren't going to get what you were supposed to get. So we already know about that. Okay, so anyway, it goes on to say, during opening statements of the trial, which began on May the 5th, Tini Garagos asked the jury to consider the federal charges, not the choices of an at times violent man. So look at the charges. Don't look at the fact that he's violent, but how can you not? When everyone saw the video, that's what many people say. And they continue to show the video over and over, like I told you. So Diddy is a complicated man. This is what they said. But this is not a complicated case. This is what Tini Garagos told the court in her opening statement. This case is about love, jealousy, infidelity, and money. This case is about voluntary adult choices made by capable adults and consensual relationships. This case is about those real-life relationships, and the government is trying to turn those relationships into a racketeering case, a prostitution case, and an ass trafficking case. It will not work. Now, she noted that Diddy had a bad temper and at times got so angry or so jealous that he was out of control. But she emphasized that the Victory rapper was not charged with being mean. He's not charged with being a jerk. He's charged with running a racketeering enterprise. And though there was violence, and you are going to hear about it, you already have. That violence is not part of any RICO. That violence is not connected to S trafficking, and that violence is not prostitution. And she rested her case. So with that all being said, what do you all think? Do you think they have enough to take Diddy down? At the end of the day, a whole lot of people saying free Diddy. And you know that's interesting because there was not so many people saying free Diddy prior to the trial, which leads me to think that people's minds have shifted. Some people are already saying free Diddy, but now there's more people saying it. It seems to me that they are not proving their darn case. And I'm going to tell you like this. You all know from day one, I told y'all Diddy is going down. But when I got here and started seeing everything that's going on and transpired and unfolded in the court, it does not look like it's as clean cut, as clear a case, okay, as I thought it was. All right? I feel like they have proven some elements of the crimes, some of the elements of a RICO, but I feel like they have not proven most of them. Okay? I feel like they have not proven most of them. But it is not up to me. It's not up to you all. It's up to the jurors. And that's what we're going to find out next week when the jury comes back from deliberation and delivers that verdict. Okay, so everybody stay tuned. I love you all to life. I'll be back to do another update after we get out of court today, okay, which will likely be about 5 o'clock. We're starting at 12. Okay, so each one teach one. That's how we grow and thrive. Do something productive, constructive, but never destructive. And always remember, beloveds, to keep the Most High first in your lives. Peace.